Now, I talked about this earlier. What if we lived in a world, this is an interesting thought experiment. What if we lived in a world where the Mustang died in 1990? And this comes by way of Motor Trend. Benjamin Hunting, writer over at Motor Trend, asked this question, and it's a relevant question that actually has some history to it because last year marked the 60th anniversary of the Mustang. The Mustang is just a iconic vehicle that everyone knows the Mustang. There's no one who doesn't know the Mustang. And the Mustang has been in various forms and flavors for, 60 years now. But it almost wasn't. And the reason for this is a thing called the Ford Probe. And the Probe was a plan that Ford had to create a front-wheel drive. There it is. Ugh, the groan. Front-wheel drive. Of course, our Honda guys out here like their front-wheel drive quite a bit. They certainly do, and there's some merits, to front-wheel drive. We won't talk about those merits because that would give them too much credence. And, of course, we have to denounce front-wheel drive. Not as much as we denounce EVs on this show, but some amount we certainly do. But look, even if front-wheel drive is a good solution for whatever it is you're doing, it's typically a great solution for economy cars, cheap cars. It's not a Mustang thing. The Mustang should not ever be front-wheel drive. Now, the Mach-E Mustang, they shouldn't even call it a Mustang. Can they just call it the Mach-E? That would be handy, right? That would be great. Just call it that. Everyone would be happy. No, you had to call it the Mustang Mach-E. But that's all-wheel drive, so whatever. Close enough. 50% there. So, but the Ford Probe came about in the late 80s as a means to make a reasonably priced sort of economy sports coupe. That was the direction a lot of the automotive industry was going into. Even your European cars, a lot of them were going front-wheel drive. Your import cars, your Japanese imports specifically, they had gone front-wheel drive a few years before this. Famously, the AE86 was followed up by the AE92, and the AE92 was front-wheel drive to the chagrin of all the enthusiasts around the world. And then, of course, Honda being front-wheel drive predominantly with the exclusion of their S600, S800 early on. And then, of course, the S2000, the NSX and stuff brought that rear-wheel drive back in the 90s and the late 90s, early 2000s. But I digress. So Ford said, what if we cooperated with our partner Mazda and built something, had a 3-liter V6, 200 horsepower, and it actually was pulled out from under the hood of the Taurus SHO, which has that really trick Yamaha designed V6. That does sound glorious. That is a great V6. And it had some classic, kind of late 80s wedge styling to it. This was the Probe. All things considered, not a bad car. But the idea was to replace the Mustang with this. And that's where Mustang fans, got up in arms, threatened to overthrow entire nations over this. That might be a bit of an exaggeration, but they were very upset. And Ford, to their credit, had listened to the Mustang fans. They listened to them and said, all right, fine. We'll build a new generation of Mustang for you. And then ultimately, you go from the Fox Body Mustang to the SN95 Mustang, to the New Edge, to the S197, and all of those generations there. And of course, you have the S550 and whatever the new one's called now. I'm drawing a blank on that. But, you can trace the lineage back to that. But this was almost the part where it ended. And this Motor Trend article I find fascinating because it looks at a timeline here, a hypothetical timeline. Ford releases the Probe, and Ford kills the Mustang with this. And imagine this is the alternate timeline. This is the branch here, okay? 1989, the start of a performance revolution. And it goes on to say, although there's a brief outcry from the Mustang devotees, Ford fanatics quickly flock to the Probe as the automaker gives it a massive push. And they go on to say here that it takes on rumored supercars lurking at the edges of Japan's bubble economy, and everything is on the table, right? We're setting the stage here. 1990, the Cavalier. Chevy jumps on board and kills the Camaro for the Cavalier with eyes on taking on the FD Mazda RX-7, the A80 Supra, the Z32 Nissan, the 300ZX, all of that stuff. And they push the Cavalier as the sporty replacement here. And then the Fox Body Mustang dies altogether in 1992 in this alternate timeline. And the Ford Probe is reborn once again, a facelift, sleeker curves, a beefier V6, 7,200 RPM redline from the Taurus show. This is a real engine, by the way, that did exist. This is the hypothetical. This is the Ford Probe GTS now. This is kind of fun delving into this alternate history here. And then they go on to say by 1994, the compact class war erupts with Chevy jumping on board. Of course, you have Dodge jumping on board with the Neon and the things like that. Now, all of this, I think is kind of, it's fun to go through it, but man, it's so close. This was so close to reality. 1998 in the alternate timeline here, Ford sends all-wheel drive on over to the Probe and gives it all-wheel drive, 270 horsepower. And, takes on the likes of Mitsubishi with it, takes on the things like the Evo with it. And again, here. Now, of course, you have a competitor to this, because what good, performance car do you have without competitors? Dodge, of course, brings on Mitsubishi. They make Diamond Star motors. You're familiar with that. They teamed up at this time period to do a number of things. But in this alternate universe, they go extra, they go extra deep into this, really taking on a compact muscle battle, if such a thing exists. Compact muscle, man, I don't know what that is. And in this hypothetical alternate timeline, this alternate universe here, 2001, there's this little movie called Fast and Furious, and starring none other than the Ford Probe with the classic livery, the Paul Walker livery on this. And instead of what we're used to seeing there. And of course, it takes on the S2000 and the Mazda Miata and the third gen MR2. By 2003, they make a Ford Probe GT. It's a Corvette fighter. I mean, this is fun. This is fun. But, I mean, we were this close to that. And we actually, this timeline, maybe we're in the broken timeline and we just got lucky with this. I don't know, but it's a fun look back at automotive history and how different things could be so easily.